couple of old junkers. Should get some good guitars.
I know. All right, everyone, I've got a great surprise guest here, my good friend Matt Schofield.
Hello.
And this is totally ad hoc. We're just going to talk about some of our favorite blues rock records to go back to our live thing we did together on our favorite blues records. And we've got some junky guitars with us.
Yeah, rubbish old things.
Yeah. Before we get rolling, thanks so much for being here. And if you like the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button. I also want to offer a really nice discount on the masterclass that both Matt and I did together. You can use the link above or below for that special price. Also, check out the YouTube freebies link below. There's a nice link to 14 free high-quality blues backing tracks. Also, 30% off of my Mastering Major Triads course. So let's get back to the video. All right, so our favorite blues rock records. What do you
Yes, these are the things we weren't allowed to talk about in the last thing that we did, which was strictly blues.
Right.
I don't know
the delineation.
I don't really know where the line stops, but it's more of a feeling thing for me, So.
Right. Well, it was interesting when you said that Stevie was more blues rock to you.
He is, and absolutely one of my biggest heroes and original inspirations, and I think quite definitely a blues guitar player. And I know many of his heroes who came to appreciate him considered the same, but somehow he definitely fits. Maybe it's a context thing or a period or a time, the 80s or whatever. But by then, maybe it's his post-Hendrixness.
Right.
Which is also another discussion. Hendrix, is it blues or blues rock or whatever? We'll get to that one in a minute, maybe. But Stevie, is blues rock. In some ways, he kind of defined blues rock that wasn't like British classic rock.
Okay, all right.
To me. So, you know what I mean? He's he's sort of the definition of it. Maybe it's a amount of notes thing or an overall approach, power trio.
For me, it was when it came out.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know much about blues in a traditional sense. You know what I mean? I knew blues for me was, look, at that point, blues for me was Zeppelin, which is still cool. My favorite British blues stuff are the Cream records, which we'll get to, are the Blues Breakers. But my listening to traditional blues was not really... so the guy who I'd say would be the first blues guy who I thought as a rock guy would have been Stevie Ray for me as well.
Yeah, right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, because he was a blues guitar player.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure he was. But the music, I suppose, is more amped up than it had been. It's almost like he was just playing, like Texas Flood, the song on the album, is squarely a blues.
It's true.
And he's very much playing the blues, but it's still more amped up than Albert King, even though it's all a bunch of Albert King licks. So, there's some kind of mystery delineation of these things, but he's definitely, kind of the definitive blues rock for me, I suppose,
Yeah.
And to the point where I'm like, I view things going back from him. Do you know what I mean? So because B.B. King was first, as I've talked about a million times for me, but then Stevie kind of put it together in a very attractive way for a 13-year-old at the time,
right?
And made it more accessible than B.B., even though I was already like wanting to be B.B. King, but couldn't kind of get to it. And then there was something about how Stevie kind of wrapped it up into this exciting thing that was like, okay, I definitely can do that for some reason. And so I view him as like then something to go back from to the history of blues.
That's how I did it too. Yeah, because you're doing like, he didn't write Texas Flood.
Yeah, exactly.
Like all those kind of things. Yeah, Sky is Crying and all that. Yeah, absolutely.
But he definitely popularized that for a lot of people. So we gotta talk. In fact, by pure look, I didn't even know we were doing this, but he's on my t-shirts.
I was gonna wear my Superman shirt under.
Yeah. I thought you always had that on.
It's true. Well, one band that we totally agree on, first off, we talked a little bit about is ZZ Top, being both huge fans of ZZ Top. So what record in particular was it for you?
Well, the first three, actually the first 5 or 6 or 7. And I love all of them, to be honest. I like even a lot of the records that people don't like of ZZ Top. But sometimes you just put ZZ Top's first record on.
Yeah.
And that makes me wonder why I didn't play a Les Paul and a Marshall from the beginning.
Sure.
And that's obviously,
absolutely.
that's not my sound, but sometimes I wonder why it's not when I listen to, like, just the touch and
Brown Sugar.
And just got back from babies. You know, he's playing it really soft. It's cranked, but it's really soft. And so, yeah, all of that stuff. And just the arrangements of the songs. And again, to classify it, they're blues tunes in a lot of ways.
Sure.
But somebody once said, I'm not sure who it was, ZZ Top play the blues, but they don't sing about the blues. You know, so they were writing kind of cheeky, silly songs about stuff on top of these kind of blues grooves. Now, actually, Frank's drumming on those first few records is very creative, other than if they're doing kind of a shuffle. But the other grooves he puts behind things are very creative grooves. So they always had their own spin, but it's definitely the blues still. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a unique take on it. So for me, it's the first few records. Certainly the first one for me would be Tres Hombres, because when hearing LaGrange on the radio as a kid, growing up in New York. If anybody grew up in New York, there was like two, I'm dating myself, of course, there was the WNEW and there was the PLJ, and then there was the other one, K-Rock.
Right.
You know, and then, so a lot of classic rock stations, or what maybe was not so much classic rock at that point, you know, but hearing LaGrange, and then it was, of course, in the 80s when they became really big of the MTV generation, I didn't make the connection that it was the same band.
Wow, yeah, it's quite a transformation, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I love Eliminator much more these days. Now I kind of like...
The songs are so great.
Yeah, I put that on, I go, man, just try making a record with such a thorough concept. You know, like that's so executed. It's such a vision. And... there was kind of like a lot of grumbling at the time. Oh, they've gone synth, they got drum machines and stuff. But actually, what a brilliant thing to do in hindsight now. Yeah. And it sort of stands up better 40 years. Yeah, 83.
The documentary is great too.
I love it, man. I've watched it dozens of times already.
Yeah, it's great. Even recording the record, they're slightly out of tune on purpose. Yeah, it's just a ton. Yeah,
pulling the strings just to double track, all that stuff. Yeah. Those first few records. So obviously, Tres Hombres record as well. It's like.
But the one I go back to all the time is the first one.
The first one has just got such a sound, and they're so young. You know, they're like 21 on that. It's like 1970. So I think Billy, it was just his birthday the other day.
That's right.
So yeah, he's like 21.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that many 21-year-olds these days, but I don't know that many 21-year-olds playing coming up with a band like ZZ Top. Yeah.
And I just think the tunes, the recordings and the tunes are just so good that it's timeless. And just make sure that when you listen to them, make sure you get the original mixes, because in the 80s the 90s they redid the drums.
I think it's probably easier to get the original mixes these days, but they did that 6-pack release and they processed it all, like not just a remaster, they remixed everything, and it sound to make it sound more like Eliminator, but actually it ruined it. So get a more recent remaster, or even better, the vinyl. So for sure. I bought when I got my turntable going again during COVID, I was like, all right, I need the box sets. So there's the first 10 records or whatever, and then the next 10. Is it 10? I can't know. Well, it was. So what is it? It's first album, Rio Grande Mud, Tres Hombres, Fandango, Tejas, and El Loco, and then, or is El Loco after Deguelo? Deguelo's a great record as well. I love that.
All those records are
that's all mostly clean sounds. That's the thing with Billy as well. Like on those records, especially Tres Hombres is a good example of this. Every tune has a different tone, and every tone is one of the best tones you've ever heard. It's like he just owns every possible combination of tones. So. Yeah, that's a good one.
If I remember, the story was it Jeff Becker Hendricks got him one of the first Marshalls in America.
Right.
Yeah. But there's that book, Rock and Roll Gearhead, and he talks about what guitars he's using. He also talks about what guitars and what tunes. It's kind of cool and how they decided to do that.
Yeah.
And I think this is all by memory, so somebody's going to correct me in the comments, of course, that he really cared about the rhythm parts, but when it came to the solos, he would just throw it down and be like, okay, let's do the next one.
Yeah.
That was the story.
And the rhythm playing on it is phenomenal as well. And the double tracking. I mean, he's really ahead of the curve with that stuff as well. I mean, people were doing overdubs and stuff. But I don't know that much before that where it was this really kind of locked in double tracking with just enough variation to make it really fat and
on Bad and Nationwide, the rhythm guitar parts behind the guitar solo are crazy.
Yeah, sometimes you can just ignore the guitar solo and
you
listen to the groove.
This is amazing, and there's two parts that work off each other. Yeah, it's really great. So we should just talk about ZZ Top the rest of the
we could. I could happily talk about that. And that's one of those influences. No one ever comes up to me after a gig and goes, "Oh man, you really sound like Billy Gibbons." Like they do with a bunch of other guitarists.
Well, I was surprised when you first told me. I didn't really realize it on it.
But
everybody loves them, but I didn't realize you were.
He's absolutely one of my original and biggest heroes, and it definitely would pay. It's a phrasing and a timing thing, and that's where I not so much, licks. I never really did that with anyone that much. But it was more just the overall approach and the tones, and so I'm definitely hugely informed by Billy. Yeah,
as am I.
I've never met him yet. I have a lot of friends.
All our friends Billy, right?
No, I don't know Billy. No, I haven't. So Billy, I would love to hang out, man.
The two of us, we're big fans. We've never met, and people are like, oh, is that Guitar Center? Billy was there. I just missed Billy.
Yeah. One of my best friends in the world, Big Pete from Holland, amazing harmonica player and singer, who fronted a band called the Red Devils basically the rebirth of the Red Devils a few years back. And my Euro tour manager, Joost Tazelaar, who does all my stuff when we're over there, they did the whole ZZ Top European tour in 2018 with the Red Devils. And they spent months together, and I still didn't get a chance to go and hang out. I was man, I don't know why I couldn't get there to one of the gigs. So Pete's hanging out with Billy all the time, and I'm like, damn,
Well, at some point, Billy, you're listening.
Yeah.
All right, what's up next? I kind of stole that one.
Well, the first one, when we said blues rock, that immediately pops into my mind because it was the first record I bought with my own money on cassette. Yeah. I think right when I was starting to play, so I was into BB, and I think probably right as I'd heard of Stevie, so I'm like 12, going on 13 years old, was Jeff Healey's See the Light record.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And that was, quite influential at the time. And in some ways, I sort of feel like Jeff was like the last really great blues rocker for my taste. After that, it became too rock, if you know what I mean. Yeah. But he had such an incredible vocabulary. I mean, obviously, completely unique technique. But he was young on that. He's like 23 on that.
And killing.
Just wailing.
And there's that late show, late night music.
There's a night music thing with it's Marcus Miller and Omar Hakim and Dr. John on piano. Yeah, and that's like right when he's just blowing up. Yeah. And he's just going nuts on it. Yeah.
Definitely worth checking out.
And just an incredible musician all around. Because he's a great jazz player and jazz trumpet or cornet player.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, wow. So having spent many a month, year, decade on and off in Toronto.
That's right.
Toronto.
Month, year, decade.
Yeah. Toronto, as they say there. Yeah. When I was first spending some time there, he still had his club in downtown. So I used to get to see him. He would do, I think Thursday nights it would be with his blues band, just kind of jamming blues like we all do. And then Sunday afternoons he would do a jazz matinee. And it was kind of traditional jazz. He was into like Dixieland, and so you'd see him with an archtop guitar on his lap or blowing a horn.
Wow.
Yeah, a big jazz collector. And so, I got to kind of say hi to him a couple of times. Didn't get to know him, but again, many musician friends up in Toronto did play with him, or and a big loss, too young as well, But that See the Light record was really the one. I didn't care for much after that, but if he'd only made that record, it would have been fine by me. And occasionally I put it on, and you just go, "Holy crap! This guy's just playing in somehow lots of notes sometimes." But he had a melody in his playing. He had
and the phrasing.
Yeah, the phrasing's really unique.
Yeah.
And it's not just
blues licks.
Yeah, there's something more going on. There's melody, there's excitement, and So Jeff was definitely important to me as a kid for sure. And in fact, like when we did the thing and I was pulling out the records, all of these records we're talking about are records that I went and fairly recently again got on vinyl because they're that important, you know. So I got that one for sure. Yeah.
The next one for me, well, there's so many of them. I don't know. And then there's rock records. So I don't know Queen. Where does that fall into and all that? That's the rock records. So blues rock for me, a huge one. So Disraeli Gears was first that I heard. It was Fresh Cream, and particularly Spoonful, and Sleepy Time that got me into Eric Clapton and to understand like why there was such a big deal. Because when I was, you know, in the MTV period, it was like Tears in Heaven and Forever Man and cool stuff.
Yeah.
But it was I didn't quite make the connection as to why everybody loved Eric Clapton so much. And I like those tunes. I'm not a Clapton hater. I'm in fact the exact opposite. You know, I'm a Clapton fanatic, especially the earlier period. But it was Sleepy Time and Spoonful, these two tunes that changed everything. And I was like, I was playing Strats primarily at the time, and I need to get a Gibson. So I remember borrowing a friend's Gibson or jamming on it and doing Marshall. I'm like, oh, completely different.
Yeah.
Like, it's the envelope of the notes.
Yeah.
It's the attack that was really kind of made me get into it. So I would say Cream, all the live stuff, especially too, of course. Then I started going crazy, but Fresh Cream and the guitar tone on that record. It's so live and just, you can tell it's screaming loud, and you can tell like, I don't know if he's turning his volume down. It just sounds like he really is playing super soft. You know, like when you hear it, like, and I think Bonamassa did a thing where he's like about how soft when you watch him play.
Yeah, and he's really not. Yeah, he's quite finessed on the.
He's not like Stevie, where it was like really. Yeah, he's quite light picking, and it really is pretty amazing. The way it. Yeah, so that's a record I highly recommend that made a huge influence on me. To this day, I still put it on and go, yeah, it's just as good as it ever was.
Yeah, the Live Cream record, the actual one that
Volume 1. Yeah, that's a great. Yeah, Wheels of Fire Volume 2 is great. Yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely incredibly important records. That again, because of sort of where I started with all this, generationally speaking, I came to after.
Sure.
Other Eric Clapton, you see.
So. Right. Well, that was long before my time, really, too.
Oh, of course. No, I don't mean.
No. I just felt like I came.
Remember when you were in the 60s?
Yeah, I remember in the 60s. Yeah, when that went.
Yeah. But I knew Eric's versions of the Cream songs.
Yeah.
So my Eric, and this is blues rock as well to me, is Journeyman and 24 Nights. So 89, 1990, 1991. That's my Eric.
The Soldano period.
Soldano through the 412s, Pewter, Clapton Strat,
Armani suits.
The suits, the Versace, the sequined Strat, and the hair.
Yeah.
That's my Eric. Yeah. And I love, my band in school, we were crazy about that stuff, and so we were kind of doing like the 24 Nights versions of like White Room. And
interesting.
That was what we were into, and very important. Again, the tone. I think if you listen to 24 Nights record, the tone, man, is that's one of Eric's best tones for me.
That's a great period.
The version of Old Love, that song on 24 Nights. The solo is phenomenal guitar. It's a phenomenal guitar solo. The dynamics, and he's just holding these notes.
It's the live thing as opposed to some of the 80s production on the track, right? So I much prefer that as well, because some of it can sound kind of dated, that kind of recording.
Yeah, although
the DX7s or whatever.
Like the August record and that kind of stuff. I do love the Journeyman album as well. That's just emerging from the 80s enough there. So like Pretending and Bad Love. And great songs as well, really great songs. So that was my Eric, and through that, then you go, okay, well, I guess these songs came from Cream, so which is at that point, 20 years earlier. Yeah, at that point, which is crazy because I put my first record out 20 years ago now. So it's amazing how
20 years ago.
It's like 2003 it came out. So but you think about the difference between 89 and 69 of the cultural shifts, whereas
what was that?
2003 doesn't seem that different now.
the music that we're listening to, like I can't with that horrible thing of like that was the same distance to the people listening to the music of 1930s music. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just this whatever I'm being an idiot right now, but yeah, cool. So what do you got next? Do you think?
That's the tricky question now. Now I'm starting to think about what other blues rock. Go on, you do.
Zeppelin. For me, it was Physical Graffiti was the first record. I have an older brother. So we had a bunch of this stuff, but Physical Graffiti, and then you go back to Zeppelin 1, which I would say that, Physical Graffiti was great, but that wasn't, there's one or two blues tunes, I can't remember there's a few, but anyway. Then I got Zeppelin 1 and I got everything, of course, and became the Zeppelin fanatic. But Zeppelin 1 was big for me because, once again, I didn't realize that they didn't write half those tunes.
Yeah, they weren't very good about that.
No,
of all the bands, they were one of the worst at being...
Yeah, but they did do their own take of it, so there is that. But their version of "You Shook Me," Page Plant, but How Many More Times and all that. To me, that was just when I still hear those songs, I just love the way they do it, and I love blues. Love old blues and everything. But my favorite blues is British blues.
Yeah,
interesting. Or ZZ Top.
Yeah, which ZZ Top is kind of British blues.
Absolutely, yeah.
But with more of a swing to it. It's got the Texas thing in there, so they were a little bit more swung than the Brits.
I agree.
The shuffles are actually shuffles.
Yes, right.
Which the British ones never really were.
No,
which is kind of why you end up with the Rolling Stones, is that they were a blues band that didn't swing very hard, so you get kind of a straight feel from Charlie. It's like
totally true.
When you hear Charlie do a shuffle on, there's a B.B. King record, and they do "Paying the Cost to Be the Boss," and it's B.B. being backed up by the Stones. And I mean, Charlie could have been, it wouldn't have been the band without him. But the shuffle's like, it's not like, it's not swinging really at all. Yeah. It's got this kind of lopsided, and it almost straightens out. Really, it's funky in its own way. It's a totally different thing. Whereas, ZZ Top, they got that Texas swag. So it's like British blues with Texas kind of
for sure.
swag. So that appealed to me.
And I think Zeppelin got some of that too.
Right.
Bonham.
Well, Bonham definitely
so that
could
had that swing. So that's what it was for me. And then when you went into bands that I love, like Sabbath, as opposed to, say, Metallica, and I like Metallica well enough, but there's a swing to Sabbath. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That some of the metal bands didn't have afterwards.
I can't say I really know that much. That's sort of... I
think you would... metal. Yeah, there's some great...
There's a lot of stuff I only recently started checking out, like, Pink Floyd and stuff, really. But partly... I know. But, I really am a blues guy in that regard.
You truly are a blues guy, yeah.
And in fact...
where does Van Halen fall into that, then?
Yeah, I mean, I've never
rock,
put...
I would say.
Yeah, probably still.
My friend's wife calls it metal.
I don't know enough of it. Like, I kind of, like... I always enjoy hearing Eddie's playing and stuff, but I've never put a Van Halen record on myself. This is stuff that Christine might put on, or actually the beginning of my...
right, Christine?
Yeah.
Yes. What are you
Van Halen or something. You're more likely to put Van Halen on. So.
All of them.
Yeah, me too. Christine's here.
Yeah, I might. I might put. Well, in fact, my buddy Ryan Perino, Ryan, sure, called us up, and Christine's already a Pink Floyd fan, and I it's just not really a thing for me. And this was a few years ago, and he said, "You gotta go see this." And Ryan's a huge Pink Floyd guy. You gotta go see this Roger Waters tour, Mm-hmm. And so that was the beginning of my kind of introduction. And I was like, sure, I'll go. It didn't really, and it's one of the best concerts I've ever seen. That was the Us and Them one, which obviously you saw as well.
Yeah, right.
And then what was the one called that we just went
and saw? This
is not a drill. Yeah, but before that, it really wasn't a thing for me. So it was Ryan's recommendation, and then Christine knows all about that. But again, that's something I kind of like walk straight past.
Yeah, sure, I get
it. Zeppelin too. I never really listened to it.
I was obsessive about Pink Floyd. It's like, I think I had every poster ever made and all the solo records and all the imports and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, we saw the show when you see the new Roger Waters show, which was amazing. He completely whitewashes David Gilmour out of the picture.
Yeah, it's like he never existed. Yeah,
like there's pictures of the band and they fade out before they get to him, or they show pictures with Syd Barrett, and you're like, but you're playing animals right now. You know what I mean? I wish you were here. You're playing dogs, and so it was that was a little weird. I have to say.
Funny. I preferred the first one that we went to.
The Us and Them tour was cool.
New Haven. We saw it in or something, right? Hartford.
I saw Us and Them down the road at the Barclays Center.
Yeah.
I took my son. I'm like, okay, not every concert you're going to... That was his first concert. I'm like, not every concert you're going to go to is going to be like this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I mean...
Give me like a bunch of old people.
That one, absolutely. The whole thing was amazing. So sometimes I have to come back to these bands and stuff. I just went right past them, you know?
Yeah.
But then it's that, to me, if I'm drawing the lines in the sand... They're more rock than blues rock to me.
Oh, Pink Floyd, yeah.
I would even say that with Zeppelin. If I was nitpicking,
I would say
just for the
first two records, the more blues records.
And I'm not informed enough to make a call on that.
So, but interesting. But so then you get into. I love the Jeff Beck group, the first records by them with Rod Stewart. Those two,
right.
Those are great records.
See, I don't really know those. I was never really a Jeff Beck fan for years. I just didn't. It wasn't because I started at BB King.
Yeah.
You know, so then that stuff is like...
No, well, you take that road.
I'm less of a little blues snob now than I was back.
You were probably really intolerable.
Yeah, I was probably... No, I mean, I was like, just had no interest in this rock stuff, and it doesn't swing, you know.
Yeah.
So, so I'm coming back to that. So, like, a few months ago, I was just by myself at home, and I thought, I'm going to put on Dark Side of the Moon because I've never actually sat down and listened to it. And of course, it's an incredible sound. Sure. I'm more intrigued by like the production values on that stuff, and that's what stands out, or what is interesting about that stuff to me. You know, it's like, wow, what a sound. You know?
Yeah. I mean, they would take a year to record it too.
Yeah.
When the budgets were such.
Yeah. Well, having done a few days here and there in the studio recently this year trying to finish up some records, we were just talking about that, of like, to even have 10 days to even be able to go, we just have to do one song a day, let alone one song a week. You know, when they had 3 months, 6 months, and
they would write the record in the studio
and then go, okay, we're going to do this again here. I mean, so all my records have been in a few days.
Most people.
Imagine that. And everybody was, you know, getting paid the whole time as well by the record. They had an advance from the record company. So if you were going in the studio, you didn't have to spend all your money on making the record. You know, it's like that now. We all have to save up to make a record. You know, it's a different world. It's a different planet.
Right, now we're going to start whinging.
No, that's the end of the whinging. That's it. But it is a different world. I thought of someone else that I think you could classify as blues rock, and of course we didn't talk about it in the blues one, but obviously everybody would realize hugely important to me. Would be Robin Ford and the Blue Line.
Yeah.
That specifically that band, blues rock, with obviously some fusion and jazz. Elements in there, but they were a blues rock band, power trio. And that is my Robin Ford, much like Journeyman and is my Eric, and it's the Blue Line is my Robin Ford. That's the stuff that changed things. Another step on in my teenage years.
We're in agreement on that one. I guess it was talk to your daughter, But the Blue Line was...
I was never a talk to your daughter guy.
I remember when it came out.
Yeah, of course.
Know what I mean? But the Blue Line is the shit.
Yeah,
talking about him. Yeah,
I randomly bought in the days when you were going to a record shop and browse, and for whatever reason, the first Blue Line record was there, and he sat on he's got his guitar in his lap on like flat like that. I think on the cover. No, that's on the back, isn't it? It was the picture of the three of them.
Right.
On the front. I don't know what it was about it. There's, I think the way he was holding the guitar or something, I'm like, it just looked like he could play it. I don't have any reason to why. I didn't know, I think maybe I'd read his name in a guitar magazine.
Yeah.
So I'm like 15 years old, maybe. Maybe even only 40. So I'm playing in bands already, and very much blues or bit of Eric, And so I just bought this record and I put it on, and he had these other notes.
And you're like, what is going on?
What this is like? It's kind of the same as what I've been listening to, but there's these other notes.
Yeah.
And so here we are now, you know. And then it was like, and as I've said before and things, but in the pre-internet, it was a different world. You couldn't just Google it on, you know, what is this?
Yeah.
Unless you knew somebody with a cool record collection who knew about other kinds of music.
Yeah.
There wasn't an easy way to find out what's going on here.
Yeah.
And then I think I was an avid guitar magazine buyer.
Yeah.
So I think pretty shortly thereafter, there was an article in a guitar magazine and on Robin, and he mentioned that you know, everybody should have Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. And so I went and got it because this is what this guy said, and I'm like, oh, this is jazz. You know, but
totally.
I know it sounds so stupid now, right, to think that you wouldn't know
not at all.
what that is.
Somebody's got to introduce you
unless,
to it.
and I'm 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
There's no reason for me to know about Miles Davis. I'm living in the country in the UK, you know. So it's that was the beginning of wanting to find out about jazz, thanks to Robin there. So
my quick little story about that. I was at Berkeley and he came, and he was on stage. He just played a blues by himself, which he's quite good at, you know. And
sure.
He was mixing all those changes in, and I'm just like, okay, because I was studying jazz at school, and I don't love jazz, like you know what I mean, enough to have majored. And that's why I went to Berkeley. You didn't have to, but I love jazz, but I don't necessarily love jazz guitar. Right? Does that, you know what I mean? Like,
I don't want
to play bebop. It's not my thing. No offense to anybody who plays it. So when I heard him play, I was like, oh, that's he's playing blues and there's rock there, but there's these other notes that are going on. And then,
absolutely.
And then somebody asked him, you know, what do you do when you come across a set of really hard chord changes? And he said, I avoid them at all costs. So I just thought that was a really cool, honest answer that, you know, but for you, like, there were those notes that I didn't know. And then that got me into, like, you know, I got heavy into, like, Mike Stern and Schofield and all that.
Yeah, see, I didn't.
Your father.
Matt, son of John, as it was my first. People are just little effort went into.
Yeah, somebody in an article referred to Matt as John Schofield's son.
Yeah, it was a review of my first ever US tour day in 2010.
Yeah,
my
first
first
gig. Out of
gig.
their hat, like
and it's Matt, son of John,
spelled differently.
But I went, how little effort went in to doing any kind of research? You just made that up. You didn't even check if it was true. And at that point, I realized, don't believe anything you read in the newspapers, exactly. As they used to say, but it's true. I never went further with jazz guitar either, because see, the thing Robin had going for him that interested me was his tone.
Yeah, sure.
And I was never into the jazz guitar sound, you know, because it was. I'm already come from BB with the singing majestic sound and all those, as we've talked about many times, the micro dynamics in his BB's playing, where it's like one note's hit like this and then this one, and then, you know, all the little details, which I never really heard. I'm not saying there's not any of that in jazz guitar, but overall the tone doesn't represent it's not so vocal as that. So Robin had this tone that was definitely a blues rock tone at that point, you know, quite gainy actually.
And he loved Cream.
And that's where it's coming from, isn't it? It's very much in the tradition of that, you know, fat, mid-rangey humbucker sound, especially the Blue Line era. It's super cool. And then, you know, same thing with the Telly, you know, spanky but fat. So it was the tone that appealed to me. So I in some ways it set the boundaries of what jazz was going to be interesting to me, and I found more interest in listening to other instruments on jazz than jazz guitar.
Exactly. Because a horn player is much more vocal. I think there's something about overdrive and volume that gives you the sensitivity of the
just some kind of voice to it. And a dynamic range as well. That's what it sort of lacked. So that was very appealing, but it still sounded like blues rock. Yeah, absolutely. So that's definitely, we have to include those guys. And as always, you know, I have to give it up to Roscoe Beck and Tom Breckline on those records, and also seeing them live as a trio, age 16, I think, maybe.
Mind blowing. Yeah.
Completely changed the game. I was like, I want a band like that.
Yeah.
Because I had always seen, I'd seen BB a bunch of times and many great blues artists, but it was more a case of the artist and the backing band.
Yeah.
So they were the first guys, we didn't get to see Cream or Hendrix or I didn't get to see Stevie Ray, But so those guys, the three of them come out, and it's just...
It was a band.
Yeah. And everybody's just playing their ass off completely.
Yeah.
And then, second song in, Roscoe starts dropping like chords with this hand with the Leslie sound, and we're like, "Where's the organ?" And again, pre-internet, you can't. There's none of this. There's none of this. YouTube videos with people talking about this stuff. It's like you did not know what was going on. It was just like, how is this sound happening? You had no prior warning that Roscoe was going to pull out like chords with a Leslie effect, and then you've got Breckline just like Animal from the Muppets back there. Back then he was playing the trad grip, but the huge like stroke from like figure of eight kind of snare, really loud. Robin's got the double through a 4/12 and a twin.
I'll put a link to a live video from the Bitter End that came out.
Yeah.
That you guys should watch it. I'll put a link below. And then Sonny Landra sits on it. I sent it to Sonny. He's like, "Oh my God, I haven't seen or thought about this."
Oh, that's the Blue Line with Bill on keys.
It was
as well.
keys.
I'd never seen that, and that went on fairly recently.
Yeah, fairly
I was
recently.
Like, damn, there's the whole sound check as well.
Yeah, it's a really great show. So I'll put the link below, and so you can see that. It's obviously with a keyboard player at that point, but still, nonetheless.
So but that was a great blues rock band.
Cool. Yeah.
As a band, I think that's a thing. In many cases, I've just thought of this, but it seems to be with the blues rock, it was often a band that created it. With the blues stuff that I like, obviously they had great bands, but it's more about like the solo, BB,
the front,
Albert, they're solo artists with a backing band. But most of my favorite blues rock stuff, and that would include how important I think Double Trouble are to Stevie's sound. It couldn't have been anyone else.
No, it couldn't.
They are a four.
Anybody else? Yeah.
These guys, they're some of the parts, and the Blue Line was like that. ZZ Top's Led Zeppelin. They couldn't get a new drummer.
Yeah,
that's when it ended. It wouldn't have been the same without Whipper and Stevie's band, Absolutely. And these just like it wouldn't have been the same without Charlie Watts. Well, I know Steve Jordan's doing it now, but it's not the same.
No, it's not.
Can't be.
Then he's also doing Charlie Watts on those two.
Yeah, he's trying his best to do that.
Yeah, which is probably very difficult.
And it's not the same without Dusty.
Nope.
And so that seems to be some. I'm trying to think if I've got any exceptions to that rule that we've talked about today. Really, I mean, the Jeff Healey band was the Jeff Healey band, and not my favorite rhythm section, but that was the sound of that record.
I think about. No, nobody really comes to mind that.
So now I have a new theory to think about.
The Brontosaurus is thin at one end, much thicker in the middle.
Oh boy.
Well, okay. Well, hope you guys enjoyed. That was fun. Thanks for joining me, Matt. Now, of course, this is just a smattering records. We just literally came over. Matt borrowed my amp. He's here with Christina. I said, let's turn on the camera and film something. So this is really... So obviously we're going to miss some records. We're going to get off this and go, oh, man, we didn't talk about...
No, we deliberately didn't include them just to annoy you who's about to make the comment.
So if there's anything, and got any comments, stuff that you like, put them in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you have to say. But be cool as always. Like I said, this is just ad hoc and we're having fun. So thanks, Matt. You got anything coming up that you want to promote?
I just want to go home actually for a bit.
That's right. You were just in Australia and England.
I'm absolutely exhausted, and I'm looking forward to actually being in my own bed. I've been home for 4 days in the last 5 weeks.
Wow, that sucks.
So I'm tired, and I'm looking forward to that. And then we'll start doing some stuff again in January. So I'm not even going to promote anything right now. No, promote my bed. Okay, sounds good. So if you like the channel, please hit like and subscribe, and go over to JM Guitar Lessons for all those kind of cool free background tracks that you can get, workshops that I've done with Matt. You can check out a workshop I've done with Matt. We're going to do another one of those. There's another one coming up. We'll promote that. Yeah, there's another one coming up in the next few months. So you just go over there, hit YouTube, the link below here, YouTube freebies, and in fact, you could even leave suggestions for what you might like it to be about if we did another masterclass, right?
Yeah, what masterclass what would you like to hear Matt and I talk about? You can leave that in the link below and be cool.
And we might not do it.
We might not do it.
But it might be
guarantee.
good, you know. So, yeah, no promises. Just a thought.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
See you later. Cheers.